Hey, everybody. Welcome to the inaugural episode of the Localpreneur Show. My name is Miles Veth. I'm the guest host today of the soon-to-be host, Josh Moran. So thank you so much for stopping by, Josh.
Absolutely, man. It's kind of easy when you're on Zoom, right?
Yeah, a lot easier. 800 miles away. It feels like 2 feet.
Awesome. Yeah, this is, I know I'm interrupting you. You're the host, but I could not be more excited about, you and I talk a lot and we talk on Zoom a lot, but this is different. We're recording this for a specific purpose. And I've wanted to start this thing here for a long, long time. And I appreciate you helping me get this off the ground. So, man, I know you're the host, but I'll let you lead here.
Yeah, well, that's a great first question. So I guess the first one I would have is for anyone who doesn't know you already, what's the executive summary on you? And you can answer that a lot of different ways. How would you answer that question?
Oh man, so that's actually funny. I guess I was thinking about this. I was thinking about this on the drive into the office, and I guess it was because I was preparing to call you. I with a business partner, Jeff, we lead a digital marketing agency. We've worked together on this for 10 years, over 10 years now, geez. And before that, we were each in our own separate parts of the world doing the same thing, but differently. And I was just driving into the office today thinking, man, I love what I do. I absolutely love what I do. And what we do on the surface is digital marketing. And I really like that, but I don't love that. What I really love doing, honestly, is, and this is going to sound so cheesy because you hear it all the time, but I guess you hear it because it must be true for some folks. I love helping people. I love that I get to come to work every day. And even though we're remote now and I've got, team members in 4 different states now, we're all on Zoom. I still come into work. I see them on Zoom or in Slack or on email, and we have our virtual town halls. And I love being able to come in and pour into their life, right? So we've got folks on our team from all ages. We've got young people just starting out. We've got some older folks, and every one of them are in their own unique seasons in life. And I find that it's easy as an entrepreneur, as a leader, as an owner of a company, to pour into their life and improve their experience, as well as our clients. And one of the things early on I used to tell our team is, since all of our clients are plumbers, electricians, HVAC companies, we're expanding into other local services like carpet cleaning, IT, chiropractors. Early on, it was mostly plumbers, and I told them in our when we were meeting in the office, in our town halls, I would say, here's how many leads we got. We drove company wide. This translates to this much revenue, and I'd give them that big number, not our revenue, but what the estimated revenue of our clients. And it was this astronomical number. And I would always end it like, that's a lot of food and a lot of plumbers' babies' bellies. And everybody would laugh, but they knew what I meant is that, yeah, we're here driving traffic to websites. We're helping people tell their story on social. We're getting call boards lit up with qualified leads. But what we're really doing at the end of the day is we're helping that client of ours, the entrepreneur, grow his business and support his family, but also his employees, his team members, and growing and expanding theirs and their lifestyle. And it's funny, a lot of these plumbers, they don't make under 6 figures. It's crazy how much a plumber can make. And so being able to be a part of a process where I get to show up every day and contribute to my team and they contribute to our clients, is just really impactful for me. And it's and I know you, Miles, and you're hosting this, and I know where you're going. It's the premise of this whole podcast that we're launching today. So I'll stop there and let you ask the next question.
Yeah, so it's a layup. So why the Localpreneur Show? You said you want to do it for a while. What are you hoping to accomplish? By bringing people on.
So first off, I got to address the name. Localpreneur is a fake name. We made it up. It's ridiculous. It sounds stupid. Any marketing guy might tell you that that's a bad name for something because it's hard to spell, hard to read, hard to remember, maybe even hard to say. But I don't care. It's the heart of what we want to showcase here. And so what I found is most of these local companies we work with, most of them in the home service industry. And everybody knows over the last 10 years how the home service industry has grown and it literally exploded. I mean, we have big names like Google and Amazon involved in these spaces where they weren't before. No one was looking this way. In fact, we thought we were the only agency, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, we thought we were the only agency in this space. I've learned since that we weren't back then, but you can't feel that way now. I mean, there's tons of agencies specializing in this. I think we're better, obviously, biased, but we started before the big home service boom, and we got to meet some of these big players early on when they were small players, and we've learned a lot from that process. One of the things that I've observed over these years is how much of an impact those organizations make in their local community. They're all entrepreneurs. The ones that are successful and that are killing it and are making it happen every day are those who have that entrepreneurial spirit. And so we all know that there are business owners out there that don't have that entrepreneurial spirit. That's fine. They can do their thing. But I know you're the same as me, Miles. We're not interested in maintaining status quo. We want to lean in, we want to grow, we want to challenge ourselves. Just because we want to be a part of something bigger than ourselves. We have clients that are the same way. They have that entrepreneurial spirit, but they're not greedy. They're not selfish. They're very generous and kind and loving people. And so I see them pouring back into their community. So not only in my opinion, are they entrepreneurs, but they're localpreneurs. They're making things happen in their local community. And that happens in a number of ways. The first one is the obvious one, where they're taking their profits and they're giving back into the community through charity, whether it's overseas or local. It could be through their local helping hands, it could be Toys for Tots, it could be their own church or other, their schools in their area. You name it. There's a long list that I've come across from our current clients and what they're doing. It blows my mind, the ideas they come up with, whether it's supporting vets or whatever it might be. They are taking their hard-earned money and putting it into their community, and it's making an impact and it's making a difference. But there's another area, the second one, that goes a bit deeper. And I get excited about this because I think that, that whole pay it forward concept, I believe that generosity begets generosity begets generosity. I think it spreads like a virus. And today we understand how viruses spread, right? But I think that generosity can be this virus that spreads. So this is why I get excited. The second area I see these guys making a difference is in their own team. And so they're giving folks on their team an opportunity that they might not have had otherwise. In our space, we deal with a lot of, since we're in marketing, we deal with a lot of their marketing managers or their marketing team. Even their interns from time to time are on calls, and I see the impact that's being made. And it doesn't surprise me anymore that there is a young person in their mid to early 20s that is now managing a $2 million budget. Now, you tell me where else that can happen in marketing. You get some young kid, goes to college, they get a degree, they come out, they intern somewhere in an agency, and they work their way up. They might be 30 years old before they're trusted with any oversight, any budget. But these guys are given this opportunity of a lifetime to step in. And don't get me wrong, they're not just some kid off the street. They're really smart, intelligent people, right? And I already mentioned plumbers and the electricians and the HVAC techs. The amount of money that they're able to earn, the level of income they're able to earn in these companies these days is mind blowing. I grew up. My dad is a contractor, and so I was around plumbers and electricians, and they weren't the guys that were making $100,000 a year, unless they owned their own contracting service themselves. But those are the two areas that I see these local organizations making a huge impact. I just look at it as like they're reaching into their community and they're pulling up like this mountain of generosity and this mountain of opportunity where they're impacting the people of the community through charity, but also their own team members by giving them opportunities they wouldn't have had elsewhere. And I believe that then those people are going to grow up, through their experience and go start their own businesses and do the same thing, or they're going to, treat their team, become managers and leaders and treat those employees the same way. And that's just going to spread. So the Localpreneur Show is going to be this YouTube podcast where we're going to meet these folks, these owners and managers and operators of these organizations, to hear their stories. And I've already reached out to a couple of them. They're excited to come on and talk about it. It's not because they want the pat on their back, it's because they really want to influence others to do the very same thing. So I already forgot your question, man. I got so carried away in my answer. The best thing to do on an interview is you have to put the question back in the answer. And I didn't do that. So, hey, once you ask the question again, we'll start over.
Yeah, no, you're great. So I think it's a great point that we work in a world that's virtual. So you mentioned you have employees in 4 states. I have employees, I think, in 6 states.
Yeah.
And we often start to think about whether it's involvement in church or business as this global thing. Like I have a neighbor down the street, but I would never think anything of them because I'm talking to you in Texas.
Yeah.
And almost like, and do you feel like part of what localpreneurs are burdened by with their responsibility is recreating some community? Because it feels like in America, we're actually hurting because we're losing that, because we're all living like this.
Yeah, that's a really great question. To add to your observation, man, I was talking with an organization that we're a part of here at VitalStorm that mentors at-risk youth, and they were taking a look at the impact. And these guys happen to be in the faith space, right? This is a faith-based organization, so they're looking at the growth in that faith around the world, and they're seeing more results outside of the U.S. than they are in the U.S., which is wild when you think about, people believe that, everyone in the U.S. goes to church. Well, we know that's not true, but that's the perception, is that this is a Christian country and whatever, but where that religion is high on the list in our value system. And although those things might be true, it's interesting that the impact is happening elsewhere. And I think it's because a lot of times we take our focus off of our own backyard, and we're thinking about, those people who are hungry in other countries, or struggling through poverty, or they don't have clean water or access to education, and which is all true. And we do need to be reaching out. We are a very wealthy nation, and we need to be sharing that by reaching out and in sustainable ways to teach them and equip them and support them to come out of those situations. I think though, in that process, we take our eye off of our own backyard, and you think about the fatherlessness issue in the U.S. and how that impacts the schools. And we've been involved in public school system in various ways that I'm sure will come out on this show, but a lot of that stems from just a home where there's one parent that is struggling to make ends meet. They may be working 2 jobs, and the kids are watching themselves. And there was a season of my life where both my parents worked, and we let ourselves in the house. And every once in a while, I forgot my key, so I learned how to break into my house so I could not be sitting on the porch for a couple hours before mom gets home. And that was my own personal experience, and it was just for a brief period of time. But a lot of children grow up that way, and so. To your point, man, we live in this virtual world. You and I are 800 miles apart, but we're literally like 4 inches apart on this screen. And we forget that maybe around the corner here from this office, there's something that could be done, that needs to be done. It can make a huge impact.
No, I think you're right. I love how I think Dabo Swinney says the grass is greenest where you water it.
Yeah.
And it's just that idea of like, we can all think, oh, I'd rather live there or this, and I've seen with churches, I know I'm excited to ask you the next question about church, but one of the challenges with American churches is they ship so much money and resources overseas, which actually is inefficient for them to get on a plane and go to Jamaica to shake someone's hand for 2 seconds to then come back, where that money would be much better used either just given or in their communities, which, like you said, are declining faster than a lot of the countries we're trying to reach from an evangelical population. So I want to dive into that. You obviously have built a really successful business. you've helped a lot of localpreneurs across the country, income, jobs, make a difference there. You're also got a pretty big ministry bend, which I think is even potentially more than VitalStorm community focus. So I'd love to just talk about a little bit what you and your wife have done on the church side of things and kind of the vision and how that played out.
Yeah, absolutely. I love talking about this. And um, my wife and I grew up in church. She started going to church later in life. By the way, in my opinion, it's not about church. It's about the deeper aspects of that, which we could get into. And Miles, I know you, and I know we could probably shift gears and take this conversation this way for another 2 hours, but we'll probably lose some folks. But my wife and I, short story, we were involved in the operations of a church when we met together in our youth group, and we started volunteering and serving there. And that led us through a wild journey that took us all the way to Los Angeles with another group of people that mentored us. We loved them deeply and helped them with starting. They took over another church there and basically rebuilt the thing, and we were there with them to help that and learn so much from that. Then we ended up having a child and realized that, first of all, we grew up in Texas, and we don't know the first thing about raising a child in Los Angeles. Plus, all of our family is 2,000 miles away, and so we really started, counting the cost and look, we prayed and asked for help on making a decision of where should we really be putting our roots down, and we just felt called to come back home, and weren't quite sure why, but coming back home, ended up starting this business and starting a church in 2011, and now it's 2021. We just recently closed the chapter on that church, which is a unique thing. People ask me what happened. I say, well, nothing happened. There wasn't an event that said, oh, we've got to close this thing. It's not like going out of business. We just knew that chapter of our life needed to be closed, just like, leaving LA and now this, and it was a fascinating ride. I know there's more to come, but we learned so much through planting and leading that church here in our local community. And we led that thing and ran that thing as a community-based church where it wasn't, and most people are familiar with church in the US, and whether they're intimately familiar with it or they just know that church is a thing, everyone knows that church happens on Sunday mornings, right? There's a service, there's an event. What our focus was, let's not make that the most important thing we do. Yeah, we're going to gather on Sunday. We're going to hang out. We're going to learn together. We're going to worship together. We're going to pray together. We're going to be together on Sunday, but that's not the heart and soul of who we are. If you go to church and you believe in God, then you understand where Jesus fits in that, and you understand what it means to be a follower of Jesus and to be a disciple. And so that's something we really leaned into and really explored, and that led us out into our community. So we wanted to be known as the organization that is there at all the community events, that's involved in the schools, that's involved in it. And so we weren't the biggest church in the community, but you better believe everybody knew us. And as you're trying to grow something, you got to have a right perspective, because sometimes you hear feedback and it can frustrate you. But we had to really keep that in check, because a lot of the feedback we heard was, "Oh wow, you guys are at everything. We love the smiles on your face. You guys do such great work. If I didn't already go to church somewhere, I'd come to yours." And we'd be like, "Well, great, thanks for the encouragement." But we had to keep that in perspective and know, like, hey, we're making a difference. That allowed me to meet some amazing people locally and in Liberia, Africa, which we can get into if we have time. And so just being on the ground in a community, on a local church community level, really gave me perspective. It changed how I led in my business at VitalStorm. And of course, VitalStorm changed and molded how I led in church. And for me, it was all one big thing. A double standard can't exist in my mind. So if we say it's about people, then it better be about people. It can't just be about people when I'm talking on Zoom. It can't just be about people on Sunday. It can't just be about people when I'm at work leading a town hall with my team. It really has to be about people, right? And if we say we're going to do something, we got to do it, and we got to live that way all the time. I think sometimes I hold myself a little too accountable for that. And my wife's like, you're stressing out over this stuff. Like, live a little, man, take a break. But I that work in the church, which is, that chapter's closed. There'll be more chapters ahead. Was a really profound time for us. And if we wouldn't have done that, and followed those steps, I don't think we would be here as an organization at VitalStorm. I just don't believe it, because it got my attention and my eyes set in the right place.
Yeah, no, and I guess this is maybe a specific question, but as a marketer, did that help you in ministry? Like, did you use a lot of what you understand about Google or Facebook or direct mail or things to grow the church, or not? Was that more organic?
So, yeah, I mean, you would think that there are some, if I understand these marketing channels, I could go out and utilize those, and we did so. But what helped me the most wasn't that I understood Google ads or social media. It's that I understood that, marketing is storytelling. And so in marketing, we're going to use, there's a lot of things we do in this industry, which is just capturing demand. But so we utilize those channels to capture that demand. But once we have that demand captive, once we have that audience, their attention, we got to give them a story that's going to call them to action. And so for us in this space, it's usually on a landing page or a web page. But either way, you had to learn how to get in front of the right people and tell the right story. And so, in reaching people, whether it's through ministry, whether it's through business, whether it's through you name it, you got to be able to tell a story. So yeah, I absolutely do think that had something to do with it. I mean, that influence and that knowledge that I had was very beneficial.
Yeah, no, it's really cool to see the cross-pollination, because that's, I think, part of what being a localpreneur that you're really trying to embody is both business and community focus in the same vocational goal.
Yeah.
Now, I guess one question I would have for you is, so obviously a lot of entrepreneurs watch a bunch of Gary Vee videos and they decide they want to start a home service business and eventually take on Roto-Rooter, but today they're in Dallas.
Yeah.
So being a localpreneur is kind of becoming a national localpreneur, of having a lot of local hubs. And I know I think you do an amazing job, of all my friends, of having a lot of perspective and balance in how you approach life. Like, you started a church and you built a business. You could have made more money building a business faster, but you felt like you should start a church, but you want to provide for your family, so you didn't put the burden of that on the church. Like, you're very thoughtful. I'm curious how you set goals. Like, for VitalStorm, are you trying to be Gary Vee size in 30 years? Or are you trying to, and how do other localpreneurs, like, what advice would you have for goal setting?
Miles, I don't want to hurt your feelings, but I hate these questions. And it's because that question there, and it's because it's a great question. I just don't know how to answer it and feel confident that everyone hearing this answer goes, that's a terrible answer. And it's because I don't know if this is true for anyone else other than me in this whole universe. But every time I've set a goal or New Year's resolution, I spent way too much time trying to figure out what that goal should be. And I end up not even getting to it, or not getting to it in the same capacity or same way. It might be just this curse of the perfectionist that my mom put in me. My mom is an amazing interior decorator, and she's perfect in all those areas. And I grew up in that and learned that. And I think that's made me really effective in what I do, but it's also created this torment in me. And so one little simple thing is, I struggle to take notes, because I worry as I'm writing the note down, am I going to remember exactly what this is? I need to make sure, let's erase that way. I've got to write it down perfectly. And then I got to know, like, where I'm going to keep it. So sometimes I'll look around and I'll have like 5 notebooks. I'm like, oh, this is terrible. So I'll spend 30 minutes I've gotten beyond that, right? That was me early on. And so setting goals, I was like, well, crap, what should the goal be? And then I just found that I was setting goals just to set goals. And one day a light bulb went off. All right. And so this is the part that I hate, because I feel like this is where everyone's going to tune out and say, I didn't read about that in a book, so I'm not going to listen to Josh's advice. But I just learned that we live so much in the future. Don't get me wrong. We got to know where we're going. We got to see what's on the horizon. But, life is between where you're at now and where you're looking on the horizon. And so don't forget about all the steps that you're going to walk. So if I'm on this summit here, and as far as I can see is the next summit. Now that I'm 40, I know that once I get there, there'll be other summits to look for. And so I can catch myself just living from summit to summit, right? But knowing that I've got to walk down this valley and through it and then up the other side to get there, that is where all the life is. And so sometimes I'll look back at my phone at pictures of my kids, and I'll be honest with you, sometimes it makes me really sad to see those pictures of those kids being so young. It's because I know that it's not just because I know that, hey, they'll never be that baby again, or my wife and I, our youngest is 7. So we'll never have another 3-year-old in our life unless there's a mistake or something that we shouldn't happen, or until we have grandkids, right? And so that can be depressing. But what really gets me down is knowing like, oh, in that picture, in that moment, I was trying to leave that day, or I was trying to hurry out of the house to get to the office, or hey, that baseball game, I was late to that game. I took the picture, but at the end of the game, I missed the whole game. And so I have a tendency to just focus on what's ahead and get there. And so I had to learn that I need to live through this valley. I need to live through this journey. I need to live as I go up the hill and down the hill. And so for me, sometimes setting goals pulls me way too out of that, and I lose the day to day. Now, there has to be a balance. Miles, I told you I hate this question because I hate my answer. It's hard for me to articulate. So hopefully you can clean this up when I'm done. But if I set a goal, I've got to make sure I keep the balance of knowing that I've got to stop and smell the roses. I got to be a part of this day and the next day and the next day. And so sometimes, again, I'll mention it. I'm 40 years old this year. I've been able to look back and see like all the things that were accomplished, even without the goal being set, and just learning from that experience and knowing that really the goal should be your mindset. Having the right mindset will allow you to filter every conversation, every experience, every situation in the right way that you can produce into something productive. So don't get me wrong, we got to have the goals, but I get very frustrated setting goals, and it's not always because they're not met. It's because I think I overcomplicate them. And so I've really worked hard over the last 4 or 5 years of my life of cleaning this up and having the right mindset, so that I don't allow myself to get emotionally hijacked when something happens, or again, there's got to be a balance. I know what I'm striving for, but I also want to make sure I don't get carried away with that and live day to day. All right, man.
Yeah.
How was that?
No, it's great. I think you've taught me probably more than anyone, being a little further down the road, the importance of balance, because you see these people like Jeff Bezos that are launching themselves into space, but when you read about his family life or his marriage, or I don't think it's particularly compelling. And we can quantify that much easier than being a good dad.
Yeah.
But we just have to be careful. And I've noticed, for me, a lot of my confidence as an entrepreneur comes from growing.
Yeah.
Because I talk to people like, you grew this much. I'm like, yeah, isn't it awesome? And I started to realize this morning, I was talking to someone, I realized the goal is to have a business that at 2 employees is the most awesome business ever.
Yes.
Because growth, if you think about growth, like if it helps the employees and it helps the customers, great. But if it only helps the owner, like, is it really just ego? And I've noticed like that insatiable desire for more, which is kind of like Alexander the Great when he cried at the edge of the earth that he had no more to conquer. We all have a little bit of that dark part of our hearts. And it's very hard. I really admire about you, all this to say, I know it's your interview, but I really admire about you that you haven't allowed that insatiable desire for more to be like, I'm 38 and I got to hear and no one gets to hear, like, I'm going to go crazy. Because I think that indulgence in self and ego are just terrible for the other parts of our life. So I just want to say I admire you. Didn't mean to take the question.
Oh no, I appreciate it, man. I like what you added to it. You know, on the growth note, man, we all want to grow, but I think everybody who's watching this understands that you got to have revenue goals so that you can have a roadmap and track your progress and go after those numbers. But at the end of the day, it's not about the revenue. I mean, you can have 10 million in revenue and break even, or have 1% profit, or you can have 5 million in revenue and have 20% profit. I mean, at 5 million, you've got way less headaches, and with that profit margin, you're putting more money in your pocket. So, you know, I think we can get carried away with that growth number. A lot of times, man, and I'll just speak for myself. Sometimes when I get hooked on a number, it's a pride thing. Like, yeah, it's about time we reach that number, and I want to be able to know and say that I've reached that number. But you got to keep it in check, and you got to know what the greater purpose is, because at the end of the day, like they always say, when you're on your deathbed, you're not going to be, you know, counting all the money in the bank. You're going to be thinking about all the things and seeing all the faces that mattered in your life. And you know, good for Bezos for going to the moon. I mean, not to the moon, but going into just the edge of orbit. Maybe he'll go to the moon next, but just, you know, going into space. I don't know much about his family life, but you know, I hope that is just as he's accomplished just as much there as he has, you know, in space exploration. Good for him for that. But yeah, I got your point. Point taken, man.
Yeah, no, and I can't not my place to judge. I mean, I know there's probably a lot of not factual information as well about any of those people, but
yeah, and I'm like you. I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but you know, I think, you know, we know what it's like in our lives to focus on our agenda and our personal business, and where that takes us to our family. And we just want to be careful that we don't make those mistakes.
Yeah. All right. So last question. What's the best book for a localpreneur to read if you could only, and say excluding the Bible? I know you started a church. One other book a localpreneur could read, if you could have them read it 100 times, what's the one book?
Oh man, I don't honestly. I wasn't prepared for that question. And this is my problem, is I want to give you the perfect answer, Miles. You know, there's a book that comes to mind. It's called When Helping Hurts, and it changed my perspective. It's really long, but it changed my perspective on why people give and support charity or local organizations, and why they do that, what motivates them, but more importantly, why we should and how we should. And sometimes giving hurts. You know, I mentioned earlier that, you know, we should be finding ways, sustainable ways, to help people in those situations, and the sustainable part is key. And that's what I love about, you know, being a part of a church. You know, you come across folks who are generous and like to give. I'll tell you the difference between some of the people I've met in the church world that are generous and like to give because they like to give and support and help and, you know, donate, whatever it might be. And then the entrepreneurs that do it is, I'm thinking of a few of these guys that come to mind. They're very entrepreneurial, even in their generosity. Like, it's not like they're stingy and they want to say, hey, I'm going to give you this, but I'm not going to keep giving. It's more of like, I'm going to give you this, and I want you to be responsible with it, because I have a limited amount of resources too, and I want to give those to as many folks as possible. So I've seen them be even entrepreneurial in how they support a charity or a need. And that book, When Giving Hurts, is all about that, because you can't squander the resources. And we've all heard that whole that statement that you can, you know, teach a man, you can feed a man a fish, you feed him for a day. You teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. That's sort of the same thing. That book covers that premise, and it also goes deeper into understanding, like, the needs in our world, and how here in the US, you know, I know there's poverty in our country, but it's not prevalent. We don't see it like we do in other countries, but that's only financial poverty. There's other areas of poverty that we, as people who might have wealth, whether it doesn't have to be financial wealth. It could be, I mean, I think I'd rather be happy my whole life than rich. Right. And so that, to me, that's a wealth of joy that I would much rather have. And those of us who are wealthy in whatever area it might be, we should be pouring that out into others who have, you know, poverty in that area. So that book, When Helping Hurts, I'm going to read. I'm not going to regret recommending that, but once this is over, I'll regret that I didn't recommend some other book.
No,
But
I think it, but I love that answer, because sometimes the best answers are not, good to great or something. It's like, think about
yeah,
things from a different angle. And being a localpreneur means caring about the local needs. And we often assume that if we make money and give it away, that that's what the world needs from us as entrepreneurs. But there's a lot more money than there are people who can effectively deploy it.
yeah.
And you realize that, yeah, the problem. So if anyone wants to reach out to you for advice, for a job, to be a client of VitalStorm, is LinkedIn the best? Is email easiest? Like, how do you normally ask people to reach you if you're on a podcast?
I honestly think LinkedIn's going to be better. It's just, I think you'll have better access getting to it, and it won't get lost in a spam filter or something. Or God, I have the best assistant on the planet, but it's going to go through her and then through me. So I think LinkedIn's going to be the absolute best place.
So awesome. Well, thank you so much for starting this show. It was my privilege to be the guest interview today, and I look forward to listening to many more in the coming weeks.
Absolutely. Dude, I can't tell you how excited I am that we're doing this. And Miles, thank you for being here to launch this.